Hello, and welcome to the 22nd in an unknown number of podcasts. I begin today with the active coping calendar from Action for Happiness that I shared at the start of the month. Now, if you missed it or any of the other podcasts, you can go back to YouTube and find all of the previous podcasts in the archives. But with the active coping calendar for the 22nd of April, it says find positive stories in the news and share with others. So in case you had missed it over the past couple of days, I'd like to just share the story of Ken and Kia. Ken is a war veteran and he's living in a care home, and Kia, who's 17, is his main carer. And I'm not going to give away what surprise it is that she had in store for Ken, because there's a piece of film attached to it. And if you hunt it out on Twitter or social media or on any of the news websites, I'm sure you'll be able to see the little piece of film that comes with it. But a heartwarming story nonetheless, and something worthy of sharing. Speaking of happy news, there is something called the Happy Newspaper. You can follow them on Instagram. And here's just a short poem that they posted recently. Maybe we were too busy. Maybe we were too stressed. The warnings were there. We needed to rest. Things are uncertain, scary and tough. It's made us all appreciate the tiny stuff. We've never been through this before. You're doing your best. You don't need to do more. Just take each day as it comes. Find what works for you, from naps to runs. We may be stuck here for a little while, but adventures are coming and more reasons to smile. So if you are unaware of the Happy Newspaper, I can urge you to seek them out on Instagram, and you'll get some nice little daily posts from them. In addition, another post, yet again from the Happy Newspaper, goes as follows. Please remember to check in on your strong friend, your busy friend, your happy friend, or your seems to handle everything really well friend. A timely reminder that in these uncertain times, people deal with things in very different ways. The saying goes that feelings are meant to be felt, and that if you're feeling any kind of emotion, whether it be good or bad, it's a sign of us being human. So a reminder that as we are going through this, that people may well hide how they're feeling, and it's up to us not necessarily to wait for them to ask for help, but for us perhaps to reach out, to make contact, and just to check in on the people who we think perhaps are those who seem to be able to deal with things really well, because they may not be. Something that can help with that is a tree called the Blob Tree that I've used from time to time at school. Now, the Blob Tree was developed by Pip Wilson, and as you can see on the screen, it's a number of blobs resembling people climbing all over a tree. If you Google, and other search engines are available, but if you Google Blob Tree, you can find plenty of versions of this, and perhaps for some people it's a nice icebreaker to talk about emotions or feelings when people are struggling to try to put them into words. Simply take a look at each of the blobs. You can perhaps have a discussion about what each one is feeling, and then try to identify which one best resembles how you're feeling at any one moment. So this is something that children can ask their parents about, or parents can ask their children about. It's a way of opening up a conversation that sometimes is not the easiest one to have, or it may well be that these conversations just aren't being had at all. So that's the Blob Tree by Pip Wilson. Also doing the rounds at the moment, and again from the Action for Happiness folks, is this poster. This won't be forever. And as we can see on the poster, there's all sorts of top tips and handy hints for how we can navigate our way through this lockdown. Things like how to look after our mental health, what sorts of things to do for exercise. As I've talked already in previous podcasts, having some sort of a routine, having a list of things to look forward to. And it also talks about using the time to do a range of things, whether it's crafting, reading, listening, or making music. They talk about playing games and writing a journal, stuff that I've talked about before. And I'd like to end today's podcast with a couple of things about how we can perhaps write these journals and what sorts of games it is that we can play. So this has been developed by Natalie Long. She's a Canadian graphic designer, and initially this was something that she had designed for her very young daughter. A time capsule. It's a series of pages to be coloured in and things to be recorded in a journal-like way. She has since developed a version for adults as well. The links for both of those I will tweet. So that's at Chief Vicar. I'll tweet that out so that you can gain access to those. She's made them freely available for anybody who wants to use them. I'll also send those links to Mr. Routs, and hopefully he can put those up onto the Academy website as well. And I mentioned playing games as one of the top tips from the Action for Happiness folks. So here's a game that I'd like to recommend. If you go into Google, and I'm aware that other search engines are available, but the Google Doodle for today is one celebrating the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. Now, recently the Google Doodles have been acknowledging key workers, but for today it features a game for Earth Day that has a bee, and you have to go around pollinating flowers. Now, it might not seem enjoyable or even exciting, but trust me, this morning when I had a quick go of the game, I found it very addictive and played it perhaps for a little bit longer than I should have. Possibly because every so often in the game there's a larger flower to pollinate, and it reveals some fun facts about bees and how they're important in the world and for us. So that's the Google Doodle today for the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, and there's a really nice bee game. Now, some of those fun facts may well make their way into Fun Fact Friday, but for today's podcast and Wellbeing Wednesday, that's all. I do hope that you find some of the things highlighted today useful. As I said before, I will tweet the links for the time capsule if anybody wants to make use of that. A reminder, that's at Chief Vicar on Twitter. So until tomorrow's podcast, be kind, take care, and stay safe.